All right. Hello and welcome to the Dialogue Institute of Austin's fifth fifth Meet the Author event with Dr. Zeki Saritoprak. He is the author of the book that we are going to talk today. It's called Islam's Jesus. Some background on Dr. Saritoprak. He's been teaching Islamic studies courses at the John Carroll University for 2 decades now. He is a tireless advocate for diversity and helping JCU, but also the world, become a more welcoming place for Muslims and all minority students. He helped found it and still serves as the advisor for the Muslim Student Society and leads the group in Juma or Friday prayer. Outside the university, Dr. Soda Toprak has become a leader in dialogue and interfaith work. He is a member of the National Catholic Muslim Dialogue and currently a Muslim co-chair for the Midwest Catholic Museum Dialogue, both of which are co-sponsored by the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops and the Islamic Society of Northern America. The book that we're going to talk about today, Islam's Jesus, is a book about just one of the prophets of Islam, and how does he relate to the Jesus in Christianity? I'm going to give it to Dr. Saritoprak, as he's going to give a presentation about the book.
Thank you, Alperen. My topic is Jesus, and this topic of my book, Jesus in Islam, Islam's Jesus. It has a good story. This book has a good story. This Arabic one on the top, it says Isa alayhi salam, which means in Arabic, Jesus, peace be upon him. And the good story is that it is written by the best calligrapher in America, Muhammad Zakaria. And we have his name at the back of the book. So I made the long story short because there is a longer story of how Muhammad Zakaria started to write this to the publisher. So who is Jesus, right? I normally I ask questions at the beginning, but because I don't see the audience, so I will just go ahead without questioning the audience. I will not ask any question. But I will start with the birth of Jesus, basically. So Jesus' birth was a miracle. He was born of the Virgin Mary. And Mary, according to the Islamic teaching, was not touched by any human being. Mary's pregnancy was a miracle through the divine intervention. The reason I say it was a miracle, because it is in the Quran. The Quran says, Angel Gabriel, his title in the Quran is the Spirit. Angel Gabriel appears to Mary and gives this good news about the child that she will have. And he calls this child a pure child. So Jesus' title is a pure child. He is Jesus. So this way is a miracle. Jesus is a miracle. So I have, just in parentheses, I have some guests. If you hear some voices of kids, children, it's okay. I hope it will not bother you. So that is one aspect of Jesus, and that is something that Muslims and Christians are in agreement, that the birth of Jesus was a miracle. Mary was not touched by any human being. It's in agreement. Christians and Muslims are in agreement on this. He is a bringer of peace. So Jesus will bring peace. When he will bring peace? When he is back. um, when he's back. That means Muslims believe in the second coming of Jesus, like Christianity. Muslims don't say the second coming, they say he will come from above, from sky, from heaven. Also, Jesus is one of the 5 elite prophets, the highest prophets in the realm of prophethood. There are many prophets came before Islam. In fact, one saying of the prophet says 124,000 prophets came prior to Islam. Among these, 5 are the highest of all, and these are Noah, Abraham, Moses, Jesus, and Muhammad. Peace and blessings be upon them all. So these are the highest of all. And of course, at the same time, these are the highest of all human beings, because prophets are the highest, and the highest of the highest are these 5 people. Jesus is one of them. So he is among the prophets who are known as Ulul Azm in Arabic. Ulul Azm means the possessors of steadfastness. So Jesus was among them, Noah, Abraham, Moses, and Muhammad. Peace and blessings be upon them. Jesus, now if you look at the Quran speaks of Muslims prior to Islam. They were Muslims. What is the meaning of it? Basically, they submitted themselves to the will of God. So in Islam, that's why Jesus was a Muslim. Of course, when we say he was a Muslim, this would be with lowercase m. Because Muslim with uppercase M will be after the Prophet of Islam. With lowercase m, Moses was a Muslim, Jesus was a Muslim, Abraham was a Muslim. What is the meaning of it? They submitted themselves to the will of God. In fact, when the Quran speaks of the Queen of Sheba, and she comes and visits Solomon, she accepts the religion of, she becomes a Muslim, the Quran says. She becomes a Muslim. That is, she submitted herself to the will of God. Well, there was no Islam in our normal literature that we say Islam, the religion that started with Prophet Muhammad. Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, came much more later after Solomon. So how the Queen of Sheba, Bilqis, her name in the Islamic tradition known as Bilqis, how Bilqis would become a Muslim. That is the meaning of it. She submitted herself to the will of God. And anyone who submits himself or herself to the will of God is a Muslim. So Jesus was a Muslim. He was a Muslim. With this regard, basically. And it is important because sometimes you may be a Muslim with uppercase M and not a Muslim with lowercase m. That's the meaning of submitting yourself to the will of God. Your name might be a Muslim, and it might be even written in your ID card as Muslim, but if you have not submitted yourself to the will of God, you are not a Muslim. You are Muslim by name, but you are not Muslim in reality. You are not Muslim with lowercase m. You may be a Muslim with uppercase m, but you may not be a Muslim with lowercase m. So this is a little bit a tricky point, but I just wanted to draw your attention to that. And interestingly, in Arabic, there is no lowercase or uppercase letters. They are all the same. And that's why it's very hard to distinguish. Jesus also is a miracle worker. He is a messenger of God, and therefore messengers of God show people miracles to show people that they are speaking on behalf of God. They are not speaking on behalf of themselves. They are speaking on behalf of God. And Jesus has shown miracles, had shown miracles to his people. As I will mention some of them, because some of them are in the Quran, in the Holy Book of Islam. Also, Jesus is known in the Islamic tradition, like other messengers of God, as an intercessor. So there is a verse in the Quran, it says, no one can intercede except those God gives them permission to intercede. So intercession is a principle in Islamic theology, and therefore messengers of God like Jesus, Prophet Muhammad, Moses, Abraham, Noah, many other prophets of God, peace and blessings be upon them, they are allowed to intercede and say, oh Allah, oh God, please, this is a good person. We ask you to show this person your mercy and bring him from hell to paradise. And God will not reject their request, because they are beloved of God. Okay, and Jesus basically in the Quran and in the Hadith. I know the Quran is, you know about the Quran, the Holy Book of Islam. I mentioned, the word the Quran. The Hadith is the statements of the Prophet, the sayings of the Prophet. And therefore, Jesus is mentioned both in the Quran and in the Hadith, in the sayings of the Prophet as well. So I will elaborate on some Quranic verses. Basically, he is mentioned in more than 90 verses of the Quran, more than 90 verses. And he is characterized by his message, that is the gospel, Injil. The Arabic word for the message of Jesus is Injil. It is not Arabic per se. It is in the Quran, but most probably it is Aramaic. And, it is used in the Quranic terminology as a singular word. So Jesus had the gospel that God sent him as a revelation, like the Quran was sent to the Prophet of Islam, the Torah was sent to Moses, and the Psalms, Zabur in the Islamic teaching, Zabur was sent to David. Muslims have to believe in these divine revelations because they are all coming from God. They have to believe because they are in the Quran. The Quran refers to them. And therefore, the gospel is known as the book that God sent to Jesus. Of course, when we say the book that God sent to Jesus, God did not send the book from heaven like a book. It revealed to the heart of Jesus, and then later his disciples would be writing it and putting in a written document, like the Quran. When the Quran was revealed to Prophet Muhammad, of course, on various occasions, the scribes would write it down. Prophet Muhammad would have 7 scribes, and they would write for him. He himself was illiterate in the Islamic teaching. He's known as illiterate. So there's another story. We'll not get into that story, how it was written, how it was protected, how Prophet Muhammad later asked one of his companions to compile it and to put together, and Prophet Muhammad look at it and arrange the chapters, and then we have today the Holy Quran. So it's not a book coming from sky. That's not the way that happened in the Islamic tradition. So about the miracles of Jesus, basically, there is a verse in chapter 3 of the Quran, verse 49. Jesus says, surely I came to you with a sign from your Lord. I create from clay the likeness of a bird. I create from clay the likeness of a bird. So I make a bird from clay. Then I breathe into it and it becomes a bird. Bi'idhnillah, he says, with God's permission. By God's permission. By God's permission, this bird made of clay becomes a living, flying bird. And that's a miracle. That was the miracle of Jesus. So Jesus says, I heal those born blind. I heal the leper. I resurrect the dead, again by God's permission. So he was given this power, but in the Islamic teaching, all this was because God empowered Jesus to show people that he was speaking on behalf of God and not speaking on behalf of himself. He was speaking on behalf of God. And he was the messenger of God. How do you know that? The owner of the world of nature changed his rules for his sake, changed his rules for the sake of Jesus. So a bird of clay becomes a living and flying bird. So that is a miracle. This is one of his miracles. And one aspect of Jesus also, Jesus' message also is that he does not reject the Torah. He confirms the Torah. He says, I have come, that's in the Quran, chapter 3, verse 50 to 53. He says, and I have come confirming that which was before me of the Torah. So Jesus confirmed the accuracy of the Torah. He said, I'm confirming the message that came before me, and that is the Torah. And to make lawful to you part of what was forbidden to you, so he would make legal or allowed something that were not allowed initially. And then furthermore, he says, again, this in the same Quranic verses, I have come to you with a proof from your Lord. So fear God and obey me. That's what Jesus says. And this is like his statement in the Quran. We have another beautiful statement of him. I will elaborate a little bit on that too. And he says, truly, God is my Lord and your Lord. So worship only God. That's the continuation of that verse. Worship only God. Jesus clearly in this Quranic verse states that you are not allowed to worship anything other than God. You have to worship only God, the creator of heavens and earth. That's it. Not any other creature. You are to worship only God. Yes, you may like people, you may love people, that's okay. You have to love actually the prophets of God. You have to love the messengers of God, but you are not allowed to worship them. For example, in Islam, you have to love Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, but you are not allowed to worship him. He is the worshiper of God. He is not to be worshipped. In the same way, Jesus is the messenger of God, and he is the worshiper of God, but not to be worshipped. That's Islamic understanding of worship. So this is how Jesus came, and the Quranic language came and said, I have come to confirm the Torah. The Torah is the message of God. But he says, I am bringing a new message to you, and that is the gospel. So confirming the Torah, this is in chapter 5, verse 46 to 47 in the Quran, confirming the Torah, but also receiving a new message from God. And that is the gospel. That is a new message. what is the important aspect of this message? Well, there are some new things that are related to the nature of the people of the time of Jesus. Islamic theology, according to Islamic theology, God supports each prophet with certain themes, or God strengthens the prophet with certain dimensions that would be compatible with the teaching of their time. So, for example, in the time of Moses, magicians were very well known. And God supported Moses with something that challenged magicians. And actually, magicians converted to the religion of Moses, the Quran says. They said, we believe in the God of Moses and Aaron, because what he showed us is not a magic, it's beyond our capacity. Jesus, in the same way, was empowered by healing. God empowered Jesus with the power of healing, because perhaps medical issues, healing issues were very prominent in the time of Jesus. And therefore, God supported Jesus with this miracle that challenged the people of his time. You see, I'm not only healing people, I am also resurrecting. I'm taking people from death to life, reviving people. And that was not something that normal healing would be able to do that. So it was an extraordinary situation that showed the miracle of Jesus, the power that God gave Jesus. In the time of Prophet Muhammad, eloquence was very dominant. People were unbelievably interested in eloquence. A poet would be the most prestigious person in the society. Well, the Quran came and challenged the poets. He said, if you have doubt in this Quran, bring a book like it or a chapter like it. If you cannot bring it, then accept it. That's what God supported Prophet Muhammad with eloquence. The Quran's eloquence is remarkable. And that's why people would prostrate before the eloquence of the Quran. On one occasion, one poet prostrated, and they said, have you become a Muslim? And he said, no, I have not converted to Islam, but I am prostrating for the eloquence of this verse, because it's so powerful, it's so eloquent. So that is the way God supports his messengers. Each messenger will have something that will be compatible with the situations of his time. The essence of the message is the same. There is only one God. But the other dimensions can change according to the needs of the time. Another dimension that is mentioned in the Quran about Jesus is his disciples. The Quran praises the disciples of Jesus. In fact, Jesus asks, who are my helpers in God's cause? And disciples say, we are your helpers in God's cause. So the Quran says, addressing Muslims, take the disciples of Jesus as an example. Be like them. When Jesus asked them and said, who will be my helper in the cause of God? And they said, we are your helper. So these are some verses that are talking about Jesus. There is one aspect of Jesus in the Quran that is really, in the Hadith mostly. In the Quran, there is hint at it, but in the Hadith, it's very direct. And that is the second coming of Jesus. As I said, it is not the second coming in the Islamic tradition per se. It is the descent of Jesus coming from heaven to earth. The descent of Jesus from heaven to earth to bring justice to the society. So when I look at this literature, I found many books written on this. Some of them are really just pamphlets and inflammatory and trying to show people that Jesus is coming very soon. Some of them are very academic, very good, studies. Some of them just compiling all sayings of the Prophet about the topic, like one Indian scholar, I think, put together many sayings of the Prophet about the coming of Jesus. So I divided all of this literature, or the people who are part of this literature, into three main categories. The first category, I call them modernist. They have an approach, and they, according to their approach, Jesus will never come. Forget about it, because they say Jesus died, 2,000 years ago, he cannot come back. And this modernist approach, these are Muslim philosophers, some of Muslim philosophers, not all of them, not all modernists also. How many people in this group, or what is the percentage of this group in the overall literature? I think it is about maybe 2%, maybe. It's not like a huge percentage, but they are philosophers, they are authors, and they are influential. The second, the second approach, I called it the literalist approach. So the literalist approach, they take the text fully literally. They say he will come from sky directly, everybody will be able to see him. There is no any problem with this. In their understanding, God will send a person from sky. And I remember once I said to one of these literalist people, do you think that he will come with parachute? And he said, I don't know about parachute, but I know that he will come from sky directly. Maybe parachute, maybe something else, maybe something like parachute. Well, I said, it is challenging because God never sent someone from sky to be visible to everyone. Prophet Muhammad didn't come from sky. Moses didn't come from sky. And that's not the way that God deals with humanity. Theologically, it's problematic. So what is the best approach? My favorite and what I consider the best approach is the interpretive approach. And there are a good number of scholars who interpret allegorically the coming of Jesus should be understood. The coming of Jesus from heaven should be understood in an allegorical way, but not in a physical sense, a person coming from sky. So according to this approach, yes, all literature about the coming of Jesus is accurate. Yeah, there are fabricated sayings of the Prophet, but those fabricated sayings are not all. There are very sound sayings of the Prophet about the coming of Jesus. And therefore, sound in a sense that based on the methodology of the narration of the traditions of the Prophet, all these statements of the Prophet are valid and sound. And because of this, they say, instead of denying the hadith, as modernist approach would say, we need to interpret them according to our understanding and according to our reason, that reason will accept it. And therefore, they have different interpretation. I will elaborate on some of them basically. Excuse me. So, is it mentioned in the Quran, the coming of Jesus? Scholars would say there are hints in the Quran, but not direct reference. Perhaps the most direct reference is in chapter 43, verse 61, when it says, he is a sign for the hour. Jesus is a sign for the hour. That means when he comes, it means that the hour is near. So he's a sign for the hour. Many scholars, many commentators of the Quran would say this verse is actually directly referring to the coming of Jesus, to the second coming of Jesus. But some scholars would say, no, it's not relating to that. It is actually referring to the resurrection of human beings. That means God, who created Jesus with no father, is powerful to bring all human beings back to life. And therefore, that's showing the power of God. So the miraculous birth of Jesus is showing the power of God. And therefore, the one who is so powerful will bring people back to life in the afterlife. So they say, this is the connotation. And I think the majority will go with the first. And that is, Jesus is the sign of the hour. That means he will come before the end of time, and he will bring justice, and then he will die natural death. That is how understood in the Muslim tradition. In the hadith, again, there is a prophetic statement. The prophet says, by God Almighty, in whose hand my soul is, Jesus, the son of Mary, will soon descend among you Muslims as a just ruler. So Jesus will bring justice. That's the role of Jesus. He will bring justice to society. The prophetic statement, excuse me, the prophetic statement gives this role to Jesus, that he will bring justice on the face of the earth. How this will happen? One person will come and will bring justice to the world. Well, there are some commentaries on this. I will elaborate soon. There is another prophetic statement. In this prophetic statement, we see the feature of Jesus. The color of the skin of Jesus is mentioned in the saying of the prophet. And this is when Prophet of Islam sees Jesus in his dream. He says, it has been shown to me while I was sleeping, that means in my dream, I was circumambulating the holy shrine, the Kaaba. I saw a man of brown color, the best one can see among brown-colored human beings. Now, clearly, Jesus described in this hadith, in this saying of the Prophet of Islam, as a brown-colored person. Brown-colored person. Sometimes I ask my colleagues, what is the color of Jesus in America? Generally white. Well, the hadith of the Prophet says, I saw him in my dream, and he was brown-colored human being. So, and makes sense, perhaps. Jesus is, in the area where generally people are brown-colored. Maybe not always, but generally speaking. And then the Prophet describes Jesus further. He says, his hair was so long that it fell between his shoulders. So the Prophet describes the hair of Jesus. And then he says, among the best hairs one can see. And then he had combed his hair. So his hair was combed. And it was as if water was dripping from his head. So water was dripping from his head. And in Arabic, this is a connotation of cleanliness. Jesus was so clean that as if water was dripping from his head, as if he was just out of a shower and the water was dripping from his head. That is how the Prophet describes Jesus when the Prophet speaks of his cleanliness. And as we know in Islam, cleanliness is half of religion. And therefore, Jesus is at the utmost level of cleanliness in this statement of the Prophet, basically. And at the end of hadith, the Prophet says, I asked people around me, I said, who is this? And they said, this is Jesus, the son of Mary. So that is the description of the features of Jesus, the aspects of Jesus, physical aspects of Jesus, basically. There is another saying of the Prophet with this regard. Surely, Jesus the Messiah will find some people from among my community as his helpers. So the hadith says when Jesus would come, he will find some members of my community as his helpers. Some members of my community will help Jesus with his message, with the spread of his message. And then the Prophet describes those people. He praises them. Of course, he is saying this among his companions. He says, they are like you or even better than you. Those members of my community who would be helping Jesus, they are like you or better than you. So the narrator of the hadith says, the Prophet repeated this statement 3 times. They are like you or better than you. In the book, I have also a section on Jesus in the Sufi literature, in the mystical literature, in some commentaries of the Quran, prominent Turkish commentator of the Quran, Elmalı Hamdi Yazır. I will skip them because I see my time is flying, but I will elaborate on 2 dimensions that are related to the coming of Jesus as far as interpretive approach is concerned. So the first personality that I would like to elaborate on is Muhammad Abdu. Speaking of the coming of Jesus or the descent of Jesus, he says it should be understood not literally, but allegorically. He says, and it's very interesting, Muhammad Abdu is known as modernist, but he doesn't go with modernist with this regard. He prefers, because I think he saw many statements of the Prophet that are considerably sound, so his approach is not like the modernist approach, it's much more like interpretive approach, not literals too, of course. He says, the descent of Jesus and his ruling on earth can be interpreted as the dominance of love, mercy, and peace. That is to say, if mercy, love, and peace dominate the earth, that means Jesus is there. Jesus has come. Don't wait for a person coming from sky. That's what I say. Don't wait for a person coming from sky. You may wait for another millennium and a person will not come from sky. But work for this. Mercy. Spread mercy. Work for love in the world and work for peace. And that way, you will be on the side of Jesus. And what is the opposite of Jesus is the mercy, hate, war, and cruelty, against mercy. That is the opposite of the message of Jesus. So be on the side of Jesus and not on the opposite side, not on the side of hatred, not on the side of violence, not on the side of cruelty. The opposite of mercy, whatever you can find, a better word maybe. So that if we work for this, it would be basically the fulfillment of the message of Jesus. That is the approach of interpretive one. The other scholar that I like to mention briefly, and I will be done in a few minutes, and then I will be pleased to take questions if there are questions. Bediüzzaman Said Nursi. This is an Islamic scholar since, from the time of the Ottoman Empire, from Turkey. He died in 1960. In 1960, in the month of Ramadan, on the 25th of the month of Ramadan in 1960. Ramadan is coming, so happy Ramadan. Ramadan Mubarak to all audience. Nursi was very prominent Islamic scholar and very prolific. He wrote more than 130 books, small and large, on Islamic subjects. So he says the meaning of the coming of Jesus is dialogue between Christians and Muslims. In one place, he says the people of the book. The people of the book means Christians, Muslims, and Jews. So that is when there is the dialogue, and they work for peace, they should be able to bring peace. And if they bring peace, they will be fulfilling the message of Jesus and the message of the Prophet of Islam as well. So his argument is that, yes, Jesus may come in the form of an angel because his quality has become like angelic quality because he is in heaven now. But not necessarily people would know him and will see a person coming from sky. So if that's what you are waiting for, he would say, don't wait. You'll never see a person coming from sky because Jesus is not such a person. His qualities are more angelic qualities now. And he more emphasizes that the meaning of the coming of Jesus. Why Prophet Muhammad would not say, I am coming. He says, Jesus will come. It has direct connection to Christianity. And he says, Christianity will return to the original message of Jesus, will have alliance with Islam, together with Judaic tradition. These three traditions would make peace in the world. And I made a rough calculation. The population of Muslims, Christians, and Jews constitute more than half of humanity. This Abrahamic family, only one family, Abrahamic family, constitutes more than half of humanity. If they can come together and they have so much common ground, they can bring peace to the world. They can contribute to peace in the world. And when I say these Abrahamic traditions, and always I say not to exclude, let's say, other traditions like Hinduism, Buddhism, but when there is peace, everybody will benefit from it, basically. And basically, this is also coming together, invitation to the people of the book is a Quranic message. You can look at chapter 3 verse 64 of the Quran clearly says that, "O people of the book, Jews and Christians, let's come to a common word between us. Let's come to a common ground. Let's come together and do works for the betterment of humanity." What is the most encompassing umbrella that will bring us together? Worshiping one God. We all worship the creator of heavens and earth. So let's come together under this umbrella, the Quran says. Basically, let's worship only one God. That verse has very powerful message of invitation to the people of the book. And it has been there since the beginning of Islam. That invitation is, I think it's remarkable, and somehow it is not well studied, I would say. And Nursi's approach is compatible with this invitation. And that's why when you come together and you work and make an alliance, you'll bring very positive things to our societies, locally, nationally, and internationally. And therefore, this is also a dialogue between Christians, Muslims, and Jews. And then the dialogue will result in peace. Are there events that would give me hope about this, that Muslims, Christians, and Jews can achieve something? I am very optimistic. I have been part, I think, as Alperen said, I have been part of many dialogue groups and participated in Catholic Muslim dialogue. My university is a Jesuit university. We have very good dialogue institutions. We have Muslim, Jewish, Catholic dialogue. On our campus also, we have Muslim, Jewish dialogue. We have Muslim, Catholic dialogue. And also Muslims with various branches of Christianity. I was part of Muslim Baptist dialogue. They were joking, perhaps this will be the first and the last meeting between Muslims and Baptists. But it was not. They had the second one, and I think now they are having maybe the fourth one. So basically, dialogue is continuing, and the Pope Francis is now encouraging dialogue. There are many advocates of dialogue. Dialogue is not to stop as dialogue. Dialogue will take to alliance. Alliance will bring peace. That's my approach. In my book, actually, and with your permission, I like to read the conclusion of my book. Generally, it would be good to be in person, but Corona does not allow us to be in person. So even virtually, it's good, I think, to read from it. So the current trend of interfaith solidarity is in chapter 161. Page 161. The current trend of interfaith solidarity is a great step toward a peaceful future for humanity. It can be argued that when the prophet said that Jesus will come as a just ruler, he emphasized the importance of justice and peace on earth. If the trend toward dialogue and cooperation leads to justice and peace in our world, it will mean the fulfillment of the message of both Muhammad and Jesus. Peace and blessings be upon them. Thank you very much. I think now I'm ready for your questions. Please let me know if you have any question.
While we wait for the chat to send their questions, I have a couple of questions myself.
Yes, please.
As you know, last weekend was Good Friday and Easter. How did the death of Jesus transpire according to the Quran and the Hadith of Prophet Muhammad?
Well, in the Quran, there are many verses. One verse clearly says, when you look, the meaning of the verse as understood by all Muslim commentators of the Quran, and that they could not crucify him. It's a they. It doesn't say who did it. They. So you can interpret according to different understandings. So Roman soldiers could not crucify him, could not kill him. God raised him to himself. So Jesus is alive in heaven. No, he was not killed. That's one, and I would say the major interpretation. In the Christian tradition, of course, he was crucified and he was resurrected. Muslims would say no, he was. One of my Christian colleagues would say, we believe in the same thing, but with different orders. The order is different. Yes, in the Islamic teaching, yes, Jesus will die and will be resurrected, but later. One commentary says that, and that is a Christian commentary of the Quran, that person who loves the Quran, he's a colleague of mine. He says, my understanding of this verse is that when the Quran says they could not kill him, they could not crucify him, it means that they could not bring an end to his message. Yeah, even they killed him, they could not bring an end to his message. So he says, that's my understanding of the Quran. He knows Arabic, and this is his way of interpretation. Some Muslim scholars would say, no, he was raised to heaven by spirit, not by body. But generally Muslims say by spirit and by body. And those who say he was raised to heaven by spirit only, they would say he died later. He was not crucified, definitely, but he died later, a normal death. So that is, but the majority, I would say, the majority view is that he was raised to heaven by God, and he will come back and he will die normal death, and he will be resurrected as a prophet of God, as a messenger of God, and will be in paradise, and will have the power of intercession, and will ask God to put many people in paradise as well. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, that was beautiful. We have one question from the chat. Apparently this person wants you to look at Quran chapter 9 verse 31. Apparently it has
chapter 9 verse
31.
31.
Yeah.
I can look at it. Okay. What does it say? Let me see if I have a copy of the Quran. Yeah, I have it.
And please, everyone, if you have any questions, write them in chat.
You said chapter 9, 31?
Chapter 9, verse 31.
Verse 31, let's see. Okay, yes, chapter 9, verse 31, it says, اتخذوا أحبارهم ورهبانهم أربابا من دون الله والمسيح ابن مريم وما أمروا إلا ليعبدوا إلها واحدا لا إله إلا هو سبحانه عما يشركون. Well, that is the message of Jesus. Jesus says that worship only God. Yeah, I said this in the beginning. And it says, the Quranic verse says, do not take people as deity. And this verse is about that. They took their religious personalities as deities, and they're not supposed to be. You shouldn't take any one deity, because there is only one deity, and that is God. In the Islamic theology, is a very powerful message of, and that is also according to the Islamic teaching. Jesus says only worship God, my Lord and your Lord. And therefore, you love Jesus, but not to worship Jesus. You love Muhammad, but not to worship Muhammad. So I hope I answered your, you know, yeah, this is very, very, very well-known verse in the Quran. And the Quran criticized that.
Interesting. I wanted to ask, how do Christians react when you tell them, like during a conference or during an event, that Jesus is one of the most important figures in our religion, and how we even have a Quranic chapter named after Mary? Do they seem surprised, or like just can you feel like the emotion in the room at that time, and what is it?
Well, it depends. I asked some Muslims about Jesus, they don't know. I asked a group of Muslims, is there a chapter in the Quran named after Jesus? And they said no. And unfortunately, their knowledge was wrong. There is a chapter in the Quran named after Jesus. So please, don't think that you are higher than Christians in knowledge of Jesus. Be humble. We need to learn. All of us need to learn and learn and learn. We know very much sometimes, but there is value in listening to others as well. I would say when I meet with some Christian friends, colleagues, Jewish colleagues, people from other tradition, I like to listen and learn rather than to teach. Oh, I am a teacher, you are a student. Okay, listen to me. No, I like to be a student and learn from people. I think that is the behavior that I learned from Islam. So, answering your questions, it is true when you say Mary is in the Quran, there is a chapter named after her. They are surprised. Sometimes people who are not, of course, expert of Islam, they don't know about Islam. They don't know that there is so much emphasis on Mary. And when you speak, I don't know about the Bible, for example, the gospel. One of my Christian colleagues said, who is expert of Quran and also the gospel, he said, there are more references to Mary in the Quran than the gospel. The Quran has more reference to Mary. That's what he said. I haven't really studied well about Mary in the gospel. I know Mary in the Quran. I wrote on Mary in the Quran in the Islamic teaching and published by Oxford University Press, but not Mary in the gospel. I'm not familiar with that very much. But as I said, we all learning, and that's why we surprised when we learn, when we see new things.
All right. We have another question.
Please.
Did Muhammad come to Earth 500 years after Christ?
Yes, come to Earth.
Yeah, like born.
He was born. Yeah, he was not coming from sky. He was born on Earth, in Earth, on Earth. Prophet of Islam, peace and blessings be upon him, and peace and blessings be upon Jesus, peace and blessings be upon Moses. He was born in 570 Common Era. So 570 years after the birth of Jesus. Let's put this way, roughly, because the Gregorian calendar may not be exactly from the birth of Jesus. There are some debates on that. But approximately 570 years after the birth of Jesus. And yeah, that, and he was born, and he was normal birth. His birth was not a miracle. He lost his father before he was born. His mother passed away when he was 6 years old. Then his grandfather took care of him, Abdul Muttalib. And when he was 8 years old, Abdul Muttalib passed away. Now he lost three members of his family at the age of 8. And his uncle, Abu Bakr, sorry, Abu Talib, Abu Bakr is his friend,
Mhm.
Abu Talib took care of him, and Prophet Muhammad was raised in his house, in Abu Talib's house. He was unbelievably welcome in that house. They would not have their meal without the presence of the Prophet. He was even like a young boy. They would say, "This child is blessed," and they would wait for him. And he supported him. His uncle supported him to the end of his life. There are narratives that he did not believe. He said, "The blaming of the woman of Mecca is much more severe for me than the punishment that you are promising if I don't accept you." Something like that.
Uh-huh.
But there is an Islamic scholar who says that because he took care too much of the Prophet, even if he goes to hell, God will give him a place like paradise inside of hell,
Mhm.
so that he will get reward for what he has done for the messenger of God.
Yeah. We have another question. This person is asking why um why was the Bible corrupted but not the Quran?
Well, the Quran is written early, very early. Prophet Muhammad had scribes, and when angel Gabriel would bring message to him, he would immediately ask his scribes to write down. And yeah, there are references that if one of the scribes would die, Prophet would find another one to make sure that the revelation is not lost. And there is a verse in the Quran. It says that we have. Oh, I'm sorry, I have another meeting at 8.
Oh,
Um,
well, thank you so much.
so let me finish this. He says that, the Quranic verse says that we have sent the Holy Quran and we will be protecting it. There's a verse in the Quran. And that's why the Quran is confirming the Torah, confirming the Gospel and the Psalms, and therefore it is considered the final revelation of God in the Islamic teaching. So
See.
our promise was until 8, right?
Yeah, yeah. I'm
Okay.
sorry, I lost track of time.
My time, yes, okay.
All right, thank you so much. Have a nice day, sir.
You too.
Ramadan Mubarak to you. It
Thank you.
starts in a
Ramadan
week.
Mubarak and Ramadan Kareem to you all.
All
Thank
right, thank you.
you. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam. All right, well, that concludes our program for today. Please like the stream, please subscribe, please comment if you have any more questions. Maybe we can get to them. Uh, Thank you for watching and have a nice day.